I'm Kathleen Henderson from Roots and Boots, and I'm excited to show you how we made our perennial permaculture asparagus strawberry bed. So I have two beds out here that are planted in asparagus and strawberries, both of which are perennials. And these two beds are both second year hugelkultur beds. Hugelkultur beds that we trenched, that we dug, sunk down into the ground. I have a video all about how we created these beds last year. This year is their second year, and we have turned them into asparagus and strawberry perennial beds. So the idea is that the asparagus will grow tall, and then the strawberries act as a ground cover. So the strawberries should fill in all around these tall asparagus plants. I grew the asparagus myself from seed that I started in January, and then we transplanted the asparagus in late winter, early spring to these beds and added the strawberries around them. But the beds were still very empty. The strawberries would take some time to fill in, and so I got tired of weeding these beds, and what I did is sowed and planted other things to act as living mulches and to fill in those gaps while the strawberries and asparagus are continuing to grow and fill in the beds. So in this bed behind me, I planted beets down the middle, and I also added some green beans along the outer edges. There are also some zinnias in that bed. And then in this bed over here, I filled in with mustard down the middle of the bed. And along the outer edges, I transplanted calendula. There is also cosmos at either end and in the middle. So that has worked well to suppress weeds for the most part. There's been minimal weeding, and it's growing things that we can eat. I don't really plan to eat the mustard, but I can either save the mustard seeds, which I will use, and either way, whether I save the seeds or whether I pull the plants early, I can feed those plants to our pigs, our livestock. The beds have already filled in quite a bit since we planted them earlier in the growing season, and I'm excited to see the strawberries continue to fill in. Of course, after I pull the annual plants like the beets and the mustard and the calendula and the zinnia and the cosmos and the green beans, then the strawberries will have even more room to spread out. But I really love the way that the plants all help to shade each other from the intense summer heat, and to shade the soil and help retain moisture from watering and suppress weeds. So this is an example of lots of different layers of permaculture. Interplanting with all the different things that I have planted with the asparagus and the strawberries. The asparagus and the strawberries are in interplanting themselves, and then I added more layers of interplanting by introducing annual flowers and vegetables. Again, these are permaculture beds. This is their second year of growing here, so that has been fun to watch the soil really transforming. We have heavy compacted clay, terrible soil for trying to grow vegetables, and we have worked really hard on that soil. This is one of our no-till practices, is to use hugelkultur beds, avoiding tilling the earth, and then we continue to layer on compost. And at a certain point, we will no longer need to add compost. In fact, now that these are perennial beds, I do not plan to add compost. I might experiment with some cover cropping. And of course, I will keep you posted on how these beds continue to perform over the next few years. It takes a few years to get a good asparagus harvest, and it takes at least a year or two to start really getting a good strawberry harvest. So I'm hopeful that next year we'll get some strawberries, and hopefully soon thereafter we'll have even more strawberries and eventually an asparagus harvest as well. One thing about growing asparagus with strawberries, in addition to the fact that the asparagus grows tall and the strawberries act as more of a ground cover, is that the harvest times are staggered. So asparagus is actually one of the very earliest vegetables that you can harvest during the growing season. It has a very early harvesting date. When we eventually have asparagus to harvest, it can take a few years to get to that point. But then the asparagus is harvested early, and then the strawberry harvest will come next, and then both plants, you know, are perennial, so they'll continue to grow throughout the growing season, and they make good planting companions. And that is how you grow asparagus and strawberries together for a perennial permaculture interplanted bed.